Good evening. So lovely to be with you all. Yes, yes, beautiful, beautiful. So many of us are just returning from a wonderful retreat at Kripalu. And so lovely to see many of you in person. And what a gift it is. What a gift to be able to meet in this way. In person, what a gift it is to meet online. But one of the people sharing, I think it was Mallory at the end, just talked about uh, how precious it was, how necessary, how helpful it is to meet in person. And I just want to acknowledge that it was so wonderful, so wonderful. I think since COVID, we've all gotten used to is being in Zoom cyberspace with each other, and that's that's one way of meeting. But I think sometimes we forget, or we've forgotten as a culture that we need to come together in community. And so the next retreat will be August 25th through the 27th, 2023. And so that's in a month. I think it's the last weekend in August. So I hope to see you all there. And then, of course, I'll be looking at planning another in-person retreat. It'll probably be, in the winter sometime. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what comes of that. So let us get settled into our seat, and why don't we close down our eyes and just beginning to breathe together, beginning to breathe and feeling the beauty and the goodness of our hearts, of our hearts. Now, of course, if there's tension in the heart, we are softening throughout the body. Softening, softening, softening. Inviting the breath to be deep and full and to descend all the way down to the pelvis, the pelvic floor. And as we're breathing in, let's just imagine that the breath is deeply nourishing our body, easing any pain or any tension. Giving yourself permission to acknowledge what's here and what's here that's human, the parts that are holding. Many of us have traveled back home and arrived home, and maybe we've had a long day or a long week. And giving ourselves permission to compassionately relax the nervous system. And so simply breathing is one of the most compassionate things we can do for ourselves. To be willing to breathe deep and wide and full, giving ourselves full permission to let go of the thinking mind, to let go of the busyness of thought, to let go of projections, to let go of any grasping or seeking. And to just breathe, to just breathe, to just breathe. And as we breathe deeply and fully, allowing the breath to sink like an anchor, just relaxing all the tension throughout the body. Just noticing yourself coming alive in this direct experience of that which is awake, that which is aware. The direct experience of the spaciousness of the breath. The spaciousness of your consciousness. And as we continue to breathe, I invite you to bring your attention, to bring your awareness into your heart. This point right in the center of your heart. This point of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is another word for the quiet, radiant love of the heart. This point that sees that everything is okay. The point that sees that what you are is good, that life is good. It's this point which has this indestructible clarity and innocence. And so we're giving ourselves full permission just to relax a little more fully into this point of bodhicitta. This depth of quiet radiance and love. And sometimes in this world, we get so wrapped up in our mind, we forget that we can simply return. We can simply return to this point of truth within us, this point of love. And so just taking some time to breathe a little more fully here and even invite the depth and the quiet strength of the hara, the lower belly to come forward and to support. To support this radiant heart. To support this radiant heart. And if you notice, like you might notice as you continue to breathe, feel into the hara, almost like a mountain rising up to hold your heart. The strength and the power of the earth, holding up the beauty and the immensity of a redwood tree. So feeling that same strength, that same support of the earth, holding your heart up, vast, open, and even gently proud, 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 like with a sense of quiet reverence for the beauty and the divinity that is the very nature of your being, very nature of your heart, very nature of your consciousness. It's beautiful, it's pure, it's innocent, it's strong. And so this is simply an invitation to breathe, to feel, to experience this radiance, this beauty that you are. And so, welcome to Satsang. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be with you all. And again, some of you, it was so nice to see on retreat in person, and some of you, I was missing you. I was missing you. You know, we had a big room and we were pretty full, but there's room for more. There's room for you. And throughout the retreat, we were, those who couldn't make it, we were sending you some love. Sending you some love. Yeah. Yeah. So, in tonight's teaching, one of the things I'd like to speak about is on this path, in this world, like sometimes we show up on retreat and we have these incredible experiences. These, Don was sharing that he had some of the best meditations of his life during the retreat, and he's I believe 71, and he's done a tremendous amount of meditating, and it's all kinds of spiritual experiences, and met with all kinds of teachers. And sometimes, like, that's how it is on retreats. It's just so incredible. But then, after retreat, like sometimes we drive home and we get stuck in traffic, or, our flight gets canceled, or, we come home and we see that, that our house plants are dying because they weren't watered, or whatever it is, maybe someone's really mean to us or angry, or the neighbor's upset, for some reason. And so sometimes we lose it after retreat. Sometimes we lose it right after meditation, right? Driving home from yoga class. And so what do? Well, there's this very basic teaching, and I love this teaching, which is we begin again. We begin again. And I invite you all, like if you have a strong and critical mind, and you drop the spiritual ball, and the critic comes forward and says, "You nimwit, you're terrible. You didn't learn anything on the retreat," or whatever it is. Why does this always happen to me if we go into victim mode, or whatever it is? Instead of immediately, habitually going there, I've used this practice many times in the past of, I just say these two words: begin again. Begin again. And I say it with a softness, a sweetness. Like, of course, this is an evolutionary world. We begin again. We begin again. Now I'm going to tell you something that, a couple of hours ago, I fired up my dirt bike, and it had been a while since I've ridden my dirt bike. And so, I went to start it, and it didn't start. It did, it began to start, but it's got some old gas in it, and the battery was almost all the way dead. And I pressed the button, the electric start. Luckily, it's not a kickstart. In the olden days, I had kickstart bikes, and on a kickstart bike, you fail. You fail a lot. You fail a lot. You hop on that thing and you go to kick it. You normally don't get it on the first try. Maybe if you're Fonzie, you might get it on the first try. But on a kickstart bike, motorcycle, like, you got to hop up on that, and you really got to kick that thing, and you fail. And so what do? We begin again. We begin again. So I was starting my motorcycle today, and I went to start it, didn't start. And so I begin again. I press the button again, it doesn't start again. And it doesn't start again. So I begin again, and I begin again, and I begin again. And then finally, I got that thing going. And so this is the spiritual path. This is the spiritual path. If we fail at meditation, if we fail to be awake and aware of our breath, of our consciousness, if we get lost in our thinking mind, we begin again. We begin again. We begin again. We begin again, again, and again, and again. And I can tell you, that even despite Don telling me I need to get rid of my motorcycle, Rick Archer, he also told me to get rid of my motorcycle. He made me promise I'd get rid of my motorcycle. And I told Rick, okay, but I had two motorcycles at that time. So I got rid of one. I got rid of the real fast one. The one that was going to kill me. And so I was like, oh yeah, Rick, I got rid of it. But anyways, so I still have one, this dirt bike, and I took it out for a ride. And my God, is it so fun. So fun to feel the wind blowing through your hair on a hot summer day on a dirt bike. And I was just ripping through my neighborhood, just looking at the huge mountains and the views everywhere. And it's funny, because lately I haven't been riding my motorcycle very often because I bought an e-bike. And an e-bike, they're kind of silly, they're kind of nerdy, but it's fun. It's like, it's like a moped. And I was reflecting a little bit, like when you're riding in a car, you have one perspective. And when we're in a car, it's like we're kind of in a box. We are in a box. And the nature of your consciousness feels one way. But the beautiful thing about being on a bicycle is the feeling of it, the direct experience of being on a bicycle, there's much more freedom. You feel so much more. You experience so much more of life. And this is what spiritual awakening is. It's very similar to like the first time you ride a bike. You feel so alive. Your consciousness feels huge. You feel like you're moving and seeing and literally perceiving in a different way when you ride a bike. Like when you ride a bike, you experience life. You experience life. And so I've been riding this e-bike. I ride it back and forth to jujitsu, and I take my little girl with me, and I can carry my big backpack and everything, and go up and down the hills. And um, it's wondrous. It's wondrous. That's the thing about awareness, is the more awake and aware you are, it's like there's greater aspects of your being that come online. You feel and you experience so much more of life. So much more of life. And I love living in a place where I can ride a bike. I say this most months of the year. I get away about 8 months of the year riding a bike. And then on a motorcycle, what I noticed, because my bike is really high, it's a really tall dirt bike, and I just sit up just a little bit higher than when I'm on my e-bike. E-bike's it's lower, the motorcycle, I'm sitting almost like a foot higher. And just sitting up a foot higher. And sometimes, like, you do this thing when you ride a dirt bike, sometimes you stand up and you kind of squeeze your thighs a little bit and hold on to the tank. It's a way of riding. But as you stand up and you stand tall with your big open heart, and all this wind is blowing through your body, blowing through your consciousness. And again, it feels wondrous. It feels so exquisite, so incredible. You feel so utterly alive. It's like people love motorcycles. You feel so alive on a bike. You're just one moment away from death. one moment away from death. And that's, and riding a horse is the same kind of thing as, if you're galloping on a horse, if you're just walking on a horse, it's just kind of chilling, no big deal. But if you're galloping on a horse, you feel alive. So utterly alive. And I think this is what so many of us are craving. Because when we live in our egoic identity, when we live in our personality, it feels like we are imprisoned. It feels like we're imprisoned in the past, imprisoned in just this nature that is just grasping at something, wanting something, always feeling like I'm not enough. And that's the truth of our personality, is the personality at its heart will feel like it's not enough, because directly, like when you experience the personality directly, it's a shell. And when you feel into a shell, like I actually have a real shell right here. But like when you feel into the shell, you see it's just a shell. It's empty. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. It's not actually alive. It is simply a conditioning. It's simply a conditioning. This is one of the reasons why I crave, my body craves, why I do, extreme sports, or, whether it's rock climbing or mountain biking or dirt biking or jujitsu or whatever it is everything begins to feel more alive, awake and aware and alive. It is hard. When you're rolling jujitsu, you can't be thinking about anything else. You are fully here in this moment. When you're riding a motorcycle, you better not be thinking about anything else. You are awake and aware. You are looking clearly. You are seeing, perceiving. Your body is fully online. Fully online. A car, you can kind of screw around to play with your phone and this and that. Like, they sell these little things, like a phone holder for a motorcycle. It's the worst idea ever. It's like, you don't want to be pressing buttons. You'll end up dead. You have to be here. You have to be here in your body fully. In your body fully. And the more we wake up, this is what it feels like. We are fully here. fully here in every aspect of our being. We're here in our root, we're here in our heart, we're here in the solar plexus, and the beauty and the radiance of the heart. The throat is expansive and open. The mind is vast and clear. And the crown is absolutely receptive. We are fully here. And if we find ourselves on the path, not fully here, what do? We begin again. We begin again. We begin again. We begin again. And so this path, this world, it is so easy to fall asleep again. So easy to fall asleep. So easy to spend a life watching Netflix, to spend a life chasing desires, to spend a life listening to that nagging voice in our head. That nagging voice, the voice of our mother, the voice of our father, it just tells us, you're no good. You're no good. And unfortunately, I don't have that voice in my mind. But a lot of people do. A lot of people have this voice that says, you're no good. You're no good. If you find that voice within you, I invite you to begin again, to come back to your breath, to come back into the goodness of your heart, to breathe through the pain, because chances are, if there's a strong inner critic, there's probably some heaviness around our heart. Because that critic, it's like always beating up our heart. It's always beating up our emotional heart. And so we have to breathe through that pain and feel into the depth of our being and realize, oh yeah, I am good. And this critic is not the truth of me. The assumption of the critic, the belief of the critic is not the truth of me. And someone was mentioning this on retreat, is that they were saying their critic is trying to protect their heart from getting hurt. And of course, every critic does that. Every critic is always trying to protect you from getting hurt. But the beautiful thing about your heart is that your heart is indestructible. Literally. Literally. Your heart is indefilable. Your heart does not need protection. Now, our human ego needs protection sometimes. Sometimes it just needs healthy boundaries. It's a better word for protection. You know, it's rare that someone's actually trying to physically harm us. And of course, I say this every time. If someone is, you run, you fight, you flee, you call the police, you do what you need to do. But we have a protector that lives within us. And this protector, it keeps us stuck in a prison cage of hell. Now, when the protector is not there, when your voice, when your mind isn't full of this voice judging you and attacking you, you can begin to hear the sound of the birds, the songbirds. You begin to see the beauty of the trees in your yard, the mountains, the clouds. Yesterday evening, my wife and I, we were just sitting outside on the back porch. there was no rain, like not any rain at all. But then this beautiful rainbow appeared. This beautiful rainbow is just so wondrous just to see, just like this giant rainbow just coming up, like from right, the valley below us, and going way up into the sky and just touching one teeny little cloud. One teeny little cloud. When a rainbow comes, it's a sign. If you have a relationship with Skanda, it's a sign that Skanda is coming to say hello and to offer you a blessing. A blessing. And so we saw this giant rainbow, and it's just so wondrous. So wondrous. And then there's these giant turkey vultures and hawks that are just floating in these thermals. We have these big birds out here, and the birds just love to float, in the thermals, and it's just so wonderful to see. And the beauty of being awake awareness is you experience yourself as whatever it is you're seeing. And so you see a rainbow, and you are the rainbow, and you are the space in which the rainbow arises. You see a giant, turkey vulture. Their wingspan is, I think, maybe 6 feet or bigger. It's huge. They're huge birds. But when you see these birds from awake awareness, you become that. You become that. When you see life through an open heart, we become what we're seeing, what we're viewing. And then, if we happen to pick up a nasty thought, a habitual thought, we begin again. We begin again. We let go of the thought, and we come into our heart. We come into our belly. We begin again. And for so much of the spiritual path, like when we learn to practice in this very innocent way of beginning again, then the path becomes so much more of a joy. A joy. I can say, as a teacher, I've met so many people on the path who, their experience of the spiritual path wasn't this like innocently opening and walking forward in the truth and joyously calling upon the grace of God to come into their life and to be with them. For a lot of people, the spiritual path is, like for me in the beginning, I had a drill sergeant that was attacking me, telling me, meditate more, meditate more, meditate more, meditate more. For some people, the voice is like, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. But what's another voice I used to have? Was you need to like figure yourself out. Like when I was in a real bad toxic relationship, my mind would be like, you gotta figure this out. You gotta figure out how to make this work. Or you gotta figure out how to leave this thing with the least collateral damage. And then like the desirous part of me would sabotage that voice. And so I had this like internal war within my consciousness. And that's what it's like for many of us. We have these wars within us, like these wars of goodness versus, the neurotic or disgruntled aspects of our being. And, instead of fighting so much, or instead of like picking one side or the other, the path can be so much easier if we just see the foolishness of the mind without judgment, without judging ourselves in any way. And then just saying this one thing, begin again. And so with that, we breathe deeply and fully, and we begin again. And it's almost like a smile that I've remembered to step back on the path. I'm smiling because I've remembered to breathe more deeply. I'm smiling because I've remembered to let go. I'm smiling because I'm opening and trusting more fully. I'm smiling because spiritual awakening is only one breath away. It's only one breath away. Like sometimes we think the truth is 1,000 breaths away. But when we really come into our heart, when we come into the depth of our being, and we see the foolishness of our mind, we just take a deep breath and say, okay, yes, I'm going to let go of that because that is not my truth. And so can we begin again with a smile, with innocence, with a sense of innocence, the sense of softness and purity, and purity. And purity. You know, my little girl, she loves to color. She loves to color and draw and paint. And a couple times when she was like 5 years old, maybe 4 years old, she would try to draw something. And, when you're 4, you don't really know how to draw. You just kind of just like play around. And a lot of us, we don't know how to draw. Like we draw stick figures even as adults. But there's these times, just as a little girl, where she would get so frustrated. She would like break down in tears. And, so me or her mother would go sit behind her and rub her back and like, sweetie, what is going on here? And she's like, I'm trying to draw this. And, her mother is incredibly creative and artistic. Me, I don't have like any creativity or artistic sense at all. Maybe just a teeny bit, but just not much. But and so the little girl she'd kind of, I think maybe she was comparing to what her mother was drawing, and so we'd have to remind her, hey, sweetie, it's just like you're young, it's okay, like we're just playing here, we're just drawing. Breathe, feel, relax, and look, here's another piece of paper. Let's begin again. And unfortunately, I haven't seen her do that in a really long time. She's relaxed more with it. She's trusted. She's gotten a sense of, okay, art it's a creative dance. Creativity doesn't work good if there's judgment. It's hard to do anything. It's hard to live. It's hard to even just like do your job if there's lots of judgment involved. Like no one wants to be judged. And no one wants to be looked at and attacked this way. And so now, I got home. I got home at Saturday morning, like at 1 a.m. But the next day on Saturday, I was really tired because I didn't sleep much that night. And anyways, my little girl was like, "Hey, Daddy, will you paint with me?" And again, like I was pretty fried, and I was like, "Okay, all right, I'll paint." And we sat down together, and I just started to play around with painting, and it took her about half a second to guess what her daddy was painting. me, if I'm going to start drawing, I'm going to start drawing some UFOs and some aliens and doodles and Buster. And that's going to be what my picture is. And, but it's, we were just playing, we were playing. And this is, this is how the spiritual path is we want it to be play. We want it to be soft. We want it to be innocent. We want it to be lighthearted, 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 lighthearted. If it's not lighthearted, then we need to begin again. We begin again. We begin again. It's been heartbreaking sometimes because I've been to monasteries before and convents, and sometimes you see the monks or the nuns, and you see that they live under like a moral judgment, or they live under like some spiritual authority of perfectionism. Sometimes, if there's like, sometimes there's a real heavy culture in a monastery of perfectionism. Like I had a good friend, and when I was in graduate school, and he went to the seminary to become a priest. He didn't make it all the way through. He ended up dropping out. But what he said was, like everyone, like all the like the young priests, or the I guess seminary candidates, I don't know what you call them, they were all competing with each other, on the path. And I met a nun who worked at St. Teresa's, or Mother Teresa's convent in Calcutta. And they said the same thing. They said that the culture was terrible. Like everyone was competing with each other, trying to be holier than their neighbor. And of course, this isn't the truth. Like that arises out of some inferiority complex, or a deep place of insecurity within. And on this path, like this path can be so confusing, so messy. And even me personally, the last couple of years, I've had so many health challenges. Like this life, this world is hard. Sometimes we go through divorce. Sometimes, we lose all of our money, or we lose our home, we lose a relationship. And when this is the case, it's very easy to lose hope. Very easy to lose hope. And the invitation, if we do lose hope or lose faith, if we are being beat down by life, the invitation here is, can we begin again? With a softness, with a sweetness. Can we begin again? Beginning again is the invitation to step into a new perspective, a spiritual perspective. To step out of the old habitual nature of our ego and to begin again. And so I'm going to invite us all to close our eyes and to feel into our lives. And just to really take a moment and to reflect upon our lives, and to ask, what in my life, if I am deeply honest, what in my life is out of alignment with the truth? What in my life is out of alignment with my integrity? What in my life is out of alignment with my spiritual heart? And so I invite you just to see that thing, that aspect of your personality or aspect of your life, or, maybe it's a psychological habit, something that is out of alignment. And I invite you just to see it from a place of innocence, of course, non-judgment, from a gentle place of love. A gentle place of love. And if we take a deep breath and invite a greater intelligence to come forward, a greater intelligent response to come forward, a greater truth to be in the place of this confusion. And can we take a deep breath together and begin again? And begin again. And begin again. And begin again to live in alignment with our integrity. To begin again living in alignment with our heart. To begin again living in relationship with the truth. With the truth. With the truth. And so beautiful. So that's a situation or a habit that we have. And so let's play this game again. So I'm going to invite you to scan your mind and just to look and see if you have any persistent thoughts that are negative. Persistent thought that's like defeatist. Persistent thought that is judgmental. And of course, we can see already that these thoughts aren't the truth. That they're not the truth. That these thoughts are limiting, they are veiling the expansion of our consciousness. And so if we look at these thoughts and we are willing to let them go. And so we let go of that which is old, and then we take a deep breath together. And then we consciously choose to begin anew, begin new in this moment with a fresh mind, a true mind, an intelligent mind. We invite this new intelligence to come forward. We're beginning again and wiping the mind clear. And so if you invite this intelligence to come forward, I ask you, and you can just do this from the privacy of your home, is to say what the new truth is. The greater truth. The greater truth. The truth that will replace this old defeatist thought. What is the greater truth? As we begin again. As we begin again. And so smiling and just feeling inside, just feeling like, oh, this feels good. To let go of that which is dark and heavy and habitual. And to step into a greater way of being. And now I'm going to invite you to feel into your emotional nature. And just notice, is there any haunting emotional thought or heavy emotional baggage? Is there someone you need to forgive? Is there someone you need to forget? Sometimes we hold on to people. We need just to forget about them. Let them die in the past. Sometimes we hold on to arguments within our emotional nature. If we feel into the goodness, the purity of our heart, and we begin again with something new, something fresh, something alive and true, something in alignment with the beauty and the love of our heart. So again, I will ask you, what greater truth, what greater love, what greater compassion or softness, what greater strength is wanting to come forward? Can we begin again, setting the intention here to live in a truer way, in this with a higher vital mind, that's the higher emotional mind? Can we actively choose this greater truth? This greater truth. And you can even feel the vibration of your consciousness changing as we're playing with this inquiry practice, choosing that which is greater way of being, greater way of thinking or relating to the mind, a greater way of being in our vital nature, higher vital emotional nature. In fact, even inviting something beyond an emotional nature, love, to be in the place of clinginess or codependency. Happiness or joy, to be in the place of chronic depression or sarcasm or whatever it is. And then I'm going to invite you just to take one more step and really feel into your body, the physicality of this body. And all of us, we hold our body in a certain way. We relate to our body in a certain way. Sometimes we see our body as a workhorse or an old bag of bones or grumpy old man or whatever it is within us. I invite you to see, just to feel into your body and just notice. And sometimes it's just like a way of holding our body tense. It's like a tension or a resistance toward life. Sometimes we're not even sure what we're resisting, but it's like an existential resistance, an existential fight or fear of life. We hold ourselves like our mother or like our father. Sometimes it's just how we hold our jaw. And just feeling into our body and just noticing what is not true. What is not true? So it's just seeing that clearly. And then the invitation here. We take a deep breath and we begin again, new and fresh and awake and aware in our body, inviting ourselves to see our body as this holy temple, as a yoga body. And I don't mean like someone on the cover of the magazine, but a yoga body in the sense it's fluid, it's flexible, it's functioning. All the chakra centers are firing on all cylinders. We're awake and aware in our crown, in our third eye, in our throat, in our heart, in our solar plexus, in our hara, in our belly, feeling the consciousness of the body, awake, aware, vibrant, and free. And so I ask you, what is your truth for your body? And it may be as simple as your body saying, I'd like to be more active or more flexible, or I want to work out, or I want to explore being in form. I want to smile and be more at ease. I want to feel the youthfulness of this ever-present moment. Like when we really come into the direct experience of prana, of chi, there's a youthfulness to it. There's a lightheartedness. There's a buoyancy to that energy, and a buoyancy in the body. In the body. And so again, I'm going to invite you, what is your truth? As we begin again. As we begin again. And so again, just deeply setting our intention for this new way of being. Letting go of whatever the psychological habit was we did in the beginning, and replacing it with a greater truth. Inviting our mind to be in alignment with the truth of our heart, the truth of our beauty, the truth of our strength. Inviting and setting the intention in our emotional nature to be a being of love, of joy, of radiance, of forgiveness, of kindness, happiness, whatever your truth is, your higher truth. And yes, listening to the true consciousness of the body. The true consciousness of the body. Awake, aware, fluid, flexible, vibrant, joyous, buoyant, and free. What is your truth? What is your truth? And so everyone, so much love to each of you. I'm going to call it a night. I'll see you all hopefully on Wednesday night or Wednesday at the Kundalini group. And I'll keep the schedule very consistent from here on out. So much love to each of you. Good night, everyone. Much love.